before we move on, Heather, would you mind posting the results of that poll question? We take a look here. It looks like the majority of folks are using PATs for real-time in-process monitoring. How does that land with you guys? Is that kind of what you expected, or is that a little intriguing?
No, for me, it is not a surprise at all, right? It's not a surprise at all because process monitoring is the easiest category of benefits from a PAT perspective. Additional tests, additional information, right? And therefore, there are not a lot of changes in terms of the regulatory strategy operation. So it's really, I would say, the normal way to start by monitoring. It adds information, right? Not so much adds some complexity in the operation. But the return on investment is more difficult to have a true return on investment because normally process monitoring means cost avoidance or cost reduction in terms of deviation investigation time and so on and so forth, right? Not a direct benefit or not tangible.
Yeah, I'm going to echo on that actually. I think, yeah, it is very reasonable that most people are using for in-process monitoring, real-time monitoring. However, like in our company, I think this is a tricky part because although that is the first step that we will need to do, but as Luke mentioned, this is actually the return of investment is not very high and often for us, not enough to put a business justification, even if we're saying that now we just want to have it information there, like the more, and then people were asking them, what do I need all this information, more information for? It's even more data to look at, right? And how we can actually use even that information. If there's no use and it's just a nice to have, why should we spend the effort on it? So I'm also actually very curious to hear all the, how other companies are handling this. Do you have any better experience with that, or how are you handling this?
Thank you, guys.
So I can.
Oh, go ahead, Luke.
No, go.
I was just going to ask if anybody was surprised that nobody answered that they're using it in downstream monitoring. Is it? I mean, I wouldn't know. I'm not a professional scientist. I've never worked in any part of process development or the manufacturing. But does that strike anybody as surprising, or?
Yeah, I'm surprised.
Yeah.
I mean, classically, I think we are more starting from the upstream part. It is true that many of the applications actually started with USB applications. However, now these days, at least in our companies, more and more focus also started with the downstream processes. So that's, I'm quite surprised that nobody.
Glad I'm not crazy.
I wonder.
Can I add something? Can I add something for the downstream?
Yeah.
I think downstream. From 10 years ago, we already start implement SEC HPLC for real-time monitoring for high molecular species and low molecular species during downstream process. I believe currently large pharma already use different technology, HPLC, even use Raman. People use that to monitor monomer percentage, high molecular species percentage. So it has been, PAT has been implemented for downstream monitoring and control. I believe it's at PD scale. For manufacturing, maybe still need a little bit of time. Okay, I stop here. Yeah.
Thank you, Richard.
I think from an analytical perspective, downstream is just generally harder for us to develop methods with a fast enough cycle time besides SEC mols to measure an attribute that has an impact on product quality. So downstream from an analytical perspective, it's challenging to get those fast cycle time methods that are on an attribute that matters as much as we want to monitor and control it. Especially in the gene cell space, obviously. Go ahead.
But in terms of the downstream, the PAT return on investment is higher right? Because if you think about that, if you remove the QC samples and then you increase your yield, right? And the yield of downstreams are much more expensive than upstream, because that's why the focus is normally when we deploy a PAT strategy, you also think about how can you start with the last drug substance step, which is normally with PAT maturity level, I would say the UFDF, right? And once you have done all of the PAT optimization at the UFDF, normally you should have the right return on investment in order to start implementing the PAT, right? Obviously, we should have gone with the filling, with the bioburden, LL reduction, but as we know, there are no true standard and ready PAT in order to make the bridge yet. That's why UFDF should be the targeted first step for return on investment. For process understanding, as you all said, because upstream is more black box still, obviously there are plenty of opportunity to implement PAT for process understanding upstream. But the return on investment is different.
For the continuous bioprocess downstream, PAT will play a critical role. So I think as a panel for discussion, if we're forward thinking and for continuous purification to ensure product purity quality during the, let's see, 30 days purification continuous process, PAT is critical to ensure batch success. If for batch mode, we can use unit by unit control test, but continuous process is another story, different story. You need to think about that.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah. Another quick thing that I want to mention that maybe, like impurity and quality, this is a little bit maybe harder to develop such a PAT method, but the content, the titer, the protein concentration, I think that's something that is pretty straightforward, and there are different ways how we can do it, with UV-based methods and also spectroscopic method, for example. And I totally agree, for like the drug substance last step, the UFDF and the concentration, like one small sample would be quite costly, right? So if we can really, I mean, we are hard, working really on that direction to have a sample-free concentration-based UFDF control system, then it's actually quite beneficial. And I would argue this is one of the most quick and low-hanging fruit that we can do with PAT.